Om Sahna Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Sadashivasamarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Shrutismritipurananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavatpadam Shankaram Lokashankaram Samastajana Kalyane Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Sadgurum Brahma Vidvaram Sarva Vedanta Siddhanta Gocharam Tamagocharam Govindam Paramanandam Sadgurum Pranatosmyaham. So we saw the negation of Annamaya Kosha and Pranamaya Kosha. When we say negation, negation is in terms of falsifying the identification that I am not this. I am not a bundle of food. I am not a collection of bone, marrow, flesh, blood, muscles. So the false notion of I that we have in this, that has to be eliminated in our thought process. In the same way, that was Annamaya Kosha. Now the Pranamaya Kosha, I am not hungry, I am not thirsty, I am not having good digestion, bad digestion. That all doesn't belong to me, it belongs to the pranas. So even in a puja, if you see, when the Naivedya is offered to the Lord, we always say Om Pranaya Swaha, Apanaya Swaha, Vyanaya Swaha, Udanaya Swaha, Samanaya Swaha, Brahmane Swaha. So food is digested by the prana. And the prana gets the power to digest it from the Lord, from consciousness. So I am not the body, I am not the prana, and all the expressions of the body and the prana. Now comes the mind, the mental sheath, Manomaya Kosha. Jnanendriyani cha manascha manomaya syat kosho mamahamiti vastu vikalpa hetuhu sangyadi bheda kalana kalito baliyan tatpurva kosham abhipurya vijrambhate yaha. So what is the manomaya kosha that is described first? Jnanendriyani cha manascha manomaya syat. The five senses of knowledge. Five senses of action were in pranamaya kosha. So five senses of knowledge, they are a part of manomaya kosha. Because through the senses of knowledge, we gain knowledge. We see, hear, taste, smell, touch, and the knowledge comes to us. Mind is that which coordinates all the five senses, gives us a complete picture. So, jnanendriyani cha manascha manomayasya. And how is this a kosha? So, one is the perception brings the thoughts to us, and other is manascha. Mind itself is the seat of emotions. So, the manomaya kosha is a combination of two. Knowledge arising out of perception of the senses as well as the emotions and the memories. This becomes the manomaya kosha. The sense of individuality that we have is because of the vijnanamaya kosha, identifying with manomaya kosha. So the emotions, etc., they arise in this kosha, which further identified with pranamaya and annamaya. This is the sequence. And so here one understands that, okay, mind is made up of this emotions, feelings, thoughts, and also it is made up of all the knowledge that arises from perception. So when I see something very nice, or if I hear about something, then the mind has a feeling that I want it, or I want to enjoy it, or I want to go there, whatever. Some emotions will rise, desires will rise. And these two are the very cause because of which the mind wanders. Either it wanders outside in the sense objects, or it creates its own memories and wanders. Doesn't remain in the present. So kosho mamahamiti vastu vikalpa hetu. So what is this kosha then? How is this covering? Kosha literally means a covering. Like the sword is kept in the scabbard, it covers. In the same way, how does the manomaya kosha cover the self? Mama aham iti, through I and mine. Vastu vikalpa hetu. It imagines about the reality. I and mine, division is created by this mind. Aham and mama. So I am this jiva, I am this body. And then for my happiness, whatever I need, those are all my objects, my people, my things. So aham and mama. This division is created between me and the world, that this all belongs to me, this does not belong to me. This is a psychological difference. Or this body is alone me. And so even in the Gita we find Dhritarashtra says to Sanjay, Mamakaha Pandavaschaiva, my children and Pandu's children. What did they do? Having assembled on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. So aham and mama, where the vision of oneness should be there, psychologically we all are one. There is no difference. But when we create the barriers of aham and mama, then we are bound. And then there is attachment towards those whom I call as mine. There's aversion towards those who I think are not mine. And this conflict starts. So the kosha binds like that. Kosho mamahamiti vastu vikalpa hetu. Then how does it create this division? Sangnyadi bheda kalana kalito baliyan. It creates the differences which are very, very powerful. What are these differences? Sangnyadi. Sangnya means name. Adi, etc. So what are the ways in which it creates difference? So first it creates differences through name. One may say, but what about the name? What is wrong in the name? The name is a psychological, name is only a functional difference to identify different people, different objects. But how much one wants that one's name must be popular, one's name must be remembered, and then that is a psychological aspect, where one is saying, I am only this. In fact, all names belong to me from self and consciousness standpoint. But if I identify only with one equipment, then I have only one name. There may be some extra names people call me using some other names and pet names or whatever. But the idea is it is still limited to one. The fact is all names and all forms belong to me as pure consciousness. I am only appearing as all this. But that is covered by this. That knowledge is covered. So now what is the situation? Sangnyadi bheda kalana. One is through name I create a division. And then there is jealousy. Somebody else's name is more popular than mine. So that is psychological division. Sangnya, name, nama. Then rupa. Rupa is the form. Identified with one form, one binds oneself, one limits oneself. That I am only from the top of my head to the tip of my toe. That's all I am. That infinite reality has limited itself to just one form. Like the dream creator has limited itself to only one character in the dream. But the fact is that dream creator is the creator of the whole dream. So all the characters in that dream are the dream creator's mind. But identified with only one character has created a division that I am separate, world is separate, God is separate. That's what we have done. Identified with one form, separated out. World is separate, God is separate. So that's how it creates powerful differences. Name On the basis of name, discrimination happens. On the basis of form, the division happens. Nama, Rupa, Guna. Each one of us is a combination of various gunas, 3 gunas generally, Sattva, Rajas and Tamas. So now based on those gunas also divisions are created. In the whole universe, all the differences are mainly because of the mixture of the 3 gunas. So one may say, but no, guna is not created by the jiva. No, guna is not created by the jiva, but the jiva operates under the influence of the guna. And so the jiva says, I am lazy, I am dull, I am bored, tamoguna. I am excited, I am ambitious, I am attached, rajoguna. I am dynamic, rajoguna. I am peaceful, I am happy, I am loving, I am knowledgeable, sattvaguna. So identified with these, the mind has created divisions. So nama, rupa, guna, then kriya. Based on my actions, I create divisions. See, one basic discrimination in terms of what is good, what is bad, what is dharma, what is adharma, that has to be done. But what is said here on the basis of action, how does action bind? When I act with selfish and selfish desires, selfishness and I and mine, ego and self-centric desires, that creates the division. When I act out of love, when I act out of oneness, when I do not discriminate, I identify the entire universe to be the expression of the same Lord and dedicate every action to the Lord, then that doesn't bind. So by itself, none of these factors will bind. Name, form, qualities, actions, none of them will bind, because even a Jivan Mukta will have all this. A liberated person also has a name, has a form, has a combination of 3 gunas and also has actions, dynamic enough. But none of them bind, none of them are creating the division, and they are not a kosha for that person, because that person has gone beyond those identifications, identifies with oneself and uses this only as a functional means to transact in the world. So karma also doesn't, because karma is a binding factor here when it is done with ego and egocentric desires. Nama, rupa, guna, kriya. 5th is sambandha. Sambandha means relationship. So what is my relationship with the world of objects, with the people around me? It also depends on what is my relationship with myself. Person who feels very low, very, doesn't feel happy, doesn't feel loved enough, will operate out of insecurity, and there will be different difficulties in the relationships also. If a person feels strong, happy, is loving, in a relationship also, the tendency to cling will not be there, the possessiveness will not be there, one will give space to the person in the relationship. So this sambandha also can be used, relationship can be used to bind oneself. How much did I get? How did you benefit me? What did you do for me? I have done so much for you. Calculation happens. And ego boosting happens. The purpose of relationship is ego bursting, not boosting. So when one understands that part, then in every relationship, one starts giving, one starts caring, one stops calculating. Highest way to relate is anyway to see the Lord in everybody and serve them with the bhav that I am serving the Lord. Any relationship that can be done, because it's internal attitude. Externally, whatever role has to be played, one plays. But internally, one knows I am serving Bhagwan. So in that way, the relationships are schools of enlightenment. I can use them to, another beautiful quote is, relationships are the mirror of life. Mirrors of life. What do we do in a mirror? When we see ourselves in a mirror, we don't try to clean the mirror or if you see a black spot on the face, we don't try to clean the black spot on the mirror. We clean it here. Because every relationship is a means for me to understand myself, to know myself, and to improve and evolve myself, to overcome any limitation or a negativity that I have. But a lot of our time goes in spending, when we spend in trying to change others. And then the contradiction here is, when we try to change others and they are not changing, we are sitting here victimized, helpless, saying, if this person doesn't change, I can't be happy. If that person doesn't say this, I can't be happy. If this person cannot do that for me, I cannot be happy. So we are giving the key of our happiness willingly to other people. This is called psychological barrier. This is how the mind traps. So Nama, Rupa, Guna, Kriya, Sambandh. All the five, they can be used actually to liberate oneself. We can chant the name of Bhagavan, we can remember the gunas of Bhagavan, we can meditate on the form of Bhagavan, we can do actions dedicated to Bhagavan, and we can develop a sambandh with Bhagavan. All the five can be used to liberate oneself and live in this world objectively. So here it is, Sanjnadi Bheda Kalana Kalito Baliyan. These powerful ways of differences are how the mind divides and binds us. Then comes Tat Purva Kosham Abhipurya Vijrambhateyaha. The Manomaya Kosha, as though, pervades the previous Kosha and illumines it. What meaning? See, body cannot function without Pranamaya Kosha. Pranamaya Kosha cannot function without Manomaya Kosha. Why? Because Prana, as we said, is Jada. Prana doesn't have any power. It derives its power from consciousness. From where is it getting the power of consciousness? When mind enlivened by consciousness identifying with the prana, then the prana starts functioning. Also, prana doesn't have any sense of I or mine. It is the mind which has aham and mama. And it is the mind which also has the will. According to the mind, the prana will function. And that's why if we control the prana, we can control the mind, and we control the mind, the prana gets controlled. So that's the connection. So that's why he says, Tatpurva Kosham Abhipurya. Having pervaded the previous kosha, Vijrimbhate, it as though precedes it, it as though illumines it. So now, this is the Manomaya kosha and how this binds. Now see some more verses on this. A beautiful analogy is given to depict this mind. Panchendriyai panchabhireva hotrabhihi prachiyamano vishayajya dharaya jajvalyamano bahuvasanendhanaihi manomayagnirvahati prapancham. So now a beautiful analogy of a Havan Kund is given. And this Havan Kund is how when a ritual is done, there are various people who are sitting around. There is a Yajman, then there is a priest, and then there are various other people around with them. So, Panchendriyahi Panchabhireva Hotrabhihi. Who are these priests who are sitting around the Havan Kund? 4 sides the Havan Kund has, all of them, there are priests sitting. So, these 5 sense organs, they are the priest. Panchabhireva Hotrabhihi. Hota is the one who offers the oblation. So 5 of them. So these 5 senses are the 5 priests. This Havan Kund is the mind. The Hota or takes some samagri brings it close to the heart and chants the mantras, whatever the mantras are. For example, Indraya Swaha Idam Na Mama offers. Prachiyamano Vishayajya Dharaya. Now these five sense organs, Panchendriya, Panchabhirya, Hotrapi, what do they offer? They offer the five sense objects. Prachiyamano Vishayajya Dharaya. Jajvalyamano Bahu Vasana Indhanehi. In the Havan Kund itself, the fuel is kept, wood or twigs, cow dung cake, which lights the fire, and in that fire which is lit, the Havan Samagri is being offered. So what is that fire which is already inside? Bahu Vasana Indhanehi. The fuel is the Vasanas. Our own Vasanas are the fuel which has lit this fire in the trough of our mind. And now it is constantly being fed. It is fed by two things. One is the Havan Samagri, which the five sense objects represent. Another is Ajya, ghee. So if let us say five priests are there, four of them will offer the Havan Samagri, and one priest, the main priest, will offer the ghee. And it's that ghee that sustains that fire more than that Havan Samagri. And so that's what he says. Prachiyamano Vishaya Ajya Dharaya. Ajya Dhara is the ghee. So now what are these five? One is, what is the simile? The trough, the Havan Kund is our mind. The fire which is created because of the fuel, the Vasanas. And that fire is sustained by the ghee that the main priest offers, as well as all the sense perceptions that the sense organs they bring into the mind. The ghee is all the desires, etc. The sense perception, they are the ones which are the seeing, hearing, tasting, smelling, touching. Through those five senses, the sense objects are continuously being offered. So now the more the ghee is offered, the more it will light up. The more the Havan Samagri is offered, the more it will light up. So the fire becomes much more blazing. See, in a Havan Kund, of course, the fire is required to carry on the Havan, and the Ahutis must get burnt properly, and the Devata gets pleased. So that's the purpose of the Havan Kund, the Havan that is being done. When this is compared to our mind, here the Manomaya Kosha, here the idea is not to keep increasing the fire. What is the idea here? The fire must be put off. Because here it says Manomaya Agir Vahati Prapancham. It is because of this Manomaya that the whole world is experienced by us. As long as the mind is there, the world is there. When the mind is not there, no world is there. So if I want to realize the timeless, eternal, pure consciousness, I have to go beyond this mind. So our purpose is not to maintain the fire. Our purpose is to put off that fire. So that's why here, when this analogy is given, when we don't know how to act, we keep increasing the fire. That becomes the cause of our birth and death. So in the Havan Kund, as I said, the purpose is to maintain the fire, to propitiate the Devata. In this context, it is to go beyond our own mind. So this fire has to be put off, which means I have to live in self-control. The input that I am offering into the fire must be purified. Sattva Guna Pradhan. I should avoid, like in a Havan Samagri, very specific items are chosen. As well as the ghee also that is offered is very, is pure ghee. Same way through our senses, what I see, hear, taste, smell, touch must be sattvic input. Rajasic, tamasic one should avoid. And then when the fire is lit, we don't have to keep adding new wood. If we don't add the new wood, the existing wood will get burned, become ashes, and fire will get put off. Ultimately, there's nothing because I'm not fueling it more and more with wood and twigs and all that. Same way, already existing vasanas are there. To exhaust those existing vasanas, we have taken this form. Now, while exhausting these, if we act with ego and egocentric desires, we don't live in self-control. We keep adding new vasanas, new desires. Then the existing vasanas, while they are getting exhausted, they will also create many new vasanas. So that fire keeps on increasing. And as long as the fire keeps on increasing, I will think the world is real. And then I am threatened by the world. Now I have to prove myself in the world. So this cycle goes on. For a spiritual seeker, this is very important that this fire has to be put off. Then only I come to realize the peace of the self. While the mind is constantly being fed with sense objects and desires and the fuel of vasanas, it will keep burning, blazing fire will be there. The job of the sadhak is to cool that down completely. So that's a beautiful analogy here. The more the input is given, the more it will rise. And that's why self-control, thinking of the Lord, so that externally also when we perceive anything, they don't create desires in us. Because every minute the yajna is happening. Actually, through the senses, we are putting the ahutis inside constantly. Through self-control, devotion, dedication to the Lord, these are the methods to reduce. So now this is the beautiful analogy here. Once we put that fire off, what happens? One realizes that I was not this mind, I was not this body, this whole world did not exist the way in which I thought. One experiences the bliss of pure consciousness. That's the Yajna Prasad. Generally, the Yajna Prasad will be that Devata will give the blessing. Whatever the Yajman wants, the Devata will bless the Yajman. In this context, we have to bless ourselves because we are not propitiating another Devata outside. We are trying to quieten this mind itself. So in the state of contemplation, what do? I close all the senses. No sense input comes. I withdraw from memory. I withdraw from emotion. And contemplate with single pointed thought, I am Brahman, pure consciousness, I am nothing else. That will put this off. So when this gets put off, the person is realized. So two ways it happens. One is when we are living in the world, this fire of the mind is on, we are going on putting many things inside. So the fire keeps blazing up. Now one may say, but no, how can we live in the world without this fire on? One can live in the world without the fire, with the fire on, that is no problem. But be careful what we put inside. Purify the inputs. Also, let the existing vasana get exhausted. Existing fuel can get exhausted. We don't have to add extra fuel. So act in the world with the sense of dedication and selflessness and not with selfishness. Then I am not adding new vasanas. I am only exhausting the existing one. So that's how I live in the world. Then what will happen to the fire? The fire will be there, but the fire becomes purified, the fire becomes less, reduces less, it becomes lesser and lesser. And then ultimately when I sit in meditation, I withdraw from the senses, withdraw from the mind, contemplate I am pure Brahman, fire is completely put off. One realizes the pure self. Then what will happen? Then one lives in the world without any attachment, without bondage, only in love, in service, in sharing knowledge. So one will be experiencing that fulfillment, which one has wanted in and through everything. That is what one experiences. So this is the analogy of this mind through the Havan Kund. So next time when you do the Havan, it can come into the mind. The Havan is a very powerful analogy. Every time one does Havan, one should remember this fact. It is not only the external Havan, it is also internally every moment Havan is happening. How to do that Havan is what we just learned. So now Manomaya Agnir Vahati Prapancham. Now going further, he says, Nahyastya vidya manasoti rikta mano hyavidya bhava bandha hetuhu tasmin vinashte sakalam vinashtam vijrumbhate smin sakalam vijrumbhate. Very nice verse. Again, this is one of the verses, very famous verses of Vivek Chudamani. He says, Nahi asti avidya manasoti rikta. There is no ignorance apart from the mind. Manohi avidya bhavabandha hetu. Mind itself is ignorance. And it is the cause of transmigration. Bhavabandha hetu. Tasmin vinashte sakalam vinashtam. Now, if the mind is destroyed, everything is destroyed. Vijrumbhate asmin sakalam vijrumbhate. And if the mind rises, everything manifests. Now, what does this mean? Nahi asti avidya manaso atirikta. So, ignorance is in the realm of the mind. When we say, I don't know, prana cannot say, I don't know, body cannot say, I don't know. It is the mind identified with them that says, I don't know. So, I don't know things of the world, I don't know the self. Both. So, this ignorance represents here, in this context especially, it is only ignorance of the self. Nahi asti avidya manaso atirikta. See, technically, when we see from the three bodies standpoint, causal body is avidya, and that ignorance is the cause of the subtle body. That's why it is called causal body. It is the cause of the subtle body and the gross body both. So that is the technical part, that ignorance of the self causes the false identification, and then this identification with the body, mind, intellect is born. So then cycle of birth and death continues till ignorance is there. But leave the technical part here. The understanding here is that yes, causal body is there, it is unmanifest, but it manifests only as thought and desires. So I don't know the self is a manifestation of a thought in our mind. Till that thought is not manifested, I don't even know that I'm ignorant. So causal body, yes, it is the cause. Ignorance is the causal body, but it is unmanifest. The manifestation is seen only in the Manomaya Kosha. And we cannot handle something which is unmanifest. We don't even know what it is. How will we handle it? So when it manifests in the mind, then we can handle it and overcome it. So because you think about it, what is the example given here? Tasmin vinashte sakalam vinashtam. When the mind is not there, I don't experience anything, including I don't know or I know. None of those feelings and thoughts will be there. But the moment the mind wakes up, everything I perceive, the whole world I perceive, and then the thought that I know and I don't know both, that also will come up. That's why he says, Manohi avidya. Mind is ignorance. Mind is ignorance means it's not a condemning statement that mind is dull, ignorant. No. Identification with the mind that I am this, that itself is the expression of ignorance. How can I be this one little entity? But that's how I identify. So Manohi avidya, and this false identification with this mind is the cause of transmigration. Cycle of birth and death, one is going on round and round in this. Generally, we think I am born into the world. I am staying in the world. I will depart one day from the world. But what is this next two lines saying? These two lines are very unique. Tasmin vinashte sakalam vinashtam. When this mind is not there, the world disappears. And when the mind again wakes up, the world wakes up with it. Which means the entire perception of the world depends on the mind. So instead of saying that I am born into the world, what one should say, the world is born in me, the world stays in me, world goes back into me. As long as the mind is active, the world is perceived. When the mind is not active, the world goes back. And the self is always enlivening the mind. So by itself, again, the mind is only 5 elements. It cannot do anything. This self is that in which the whole universe is born, it stays, it goes back. Taittiriya Upanishad actually defines that as the definition of God is that. Who is God? So it says that Yat Prayanti Abhisamvishanti. From which the world rises, in which it stays, in which it goes back. That is pure consciousness. That pure consciousness is that if I identify myself with that, then the entire world, including this body, mind, intellect, everything is born in this pure consciousness, stays and goes back. And that consciousness is our Swarupa. But when I identify with this one body, then I feel I am born inside this world. Identify with this one mind, I feel I am the Jiva, and this Jiva has to take birth many, many lives to experience fulfillment. So it all depends on where I identify. Here it is to prove to us, this analogy is to tell us that actually when the mind is awake, then only world is perceived. In the dream state and the deep sleep state, this world is not perceived by us. So if I transcend the mind, I transcend the world. I don't have to do anything outside. I have to only transcend the false identification that I am this body, I am this mind, I am the Jiva. That is one aspect. Other aspect is again, when this is said here, that when the mind is there, then the world is there. So the projection of the mind is this world. So each person is not experiencing the same world. Each person is experiencing the world as per their own mental projections. Somebody thinks happiness is in satsang, somebody thinks happiness is in the movie, somebody thinks happiness is in alcohol. All three people are seeing different things. Living in the same world, their perception is very different. So as long as the mind is there, the world is experienced, and the mind which is there, the texture, the quality of the mind, the thoughts, the emotions that it has, on that depends the entire experience of the world also. So actually the world depends on the mind. The mind doesn't depend on the world. But that's the way which we are brought up to think that we are born into this world. The world exists, no doubt, in this context. And one has to live in the world. But psychologically, one should know that actually the perception of the world depends fully on my mind. If I change my mind, change my attitude, change my thoughts, my desires, my whole world will change. That's the best part of Vedanta, that nobody else has to change. Vedanta tells us we are responsible for our own experiences, so we can change our experience by changing our own mindset and our own thought process. So that's the symbolism here of this analogy. What we are attempting in spiritual life is tasmin vinashte sakalam vinashtam. We are attempting the destruction of our own mind. Swamiji, my mind will get destroyed. What will happen? Nothing will happen. Psychological mind only has to be destroyed. Functional mind will continue till the body lasts. Even a Jivan Mukta has a mind. But the Jivan Mukta doesn't say, I am this. Just like we have a phone, he says, I also have a mind. That distance and detachment is there, it's only an equipment. So the functional mind will continue. The psychological division that we have created in terms of identifying with this body and saying, I am only this, and then the world is different from me, that is the manonasha that has to happen. Every time we go into deep sleep, vijrumbhate asmin sakalam vijrumbhate. The mind comes back. From deep sleep, the mind comes back. Again, the whole perception of the world comes back. So that is called manolaya. Laya means where the mind has become unmanifest and quiet for some time. And again the mind becomes manifest. Again the whole world is experienced by us. So laya is not what we are seeking. What we are seeking is manonasha. Tasmin vinashte sakalam vinashtam. The sense of division and false identification has to be destroyed completely. Ramana Maharshi uses this expression, manolaya and manonasha. In a book called Upadesh Sar, that's what he is saying. Manolaya and manonasha. So manolaya, he gives the example that the birds which are there, they are captured by throwing a net. So as long as the net is there, the birds are there, they cannot fly. They are not free at all, they are bound. But if you remove the net, they will fly away. Same way the pranas are the net. Mind remains quiet for some time. But after that, the moment that control of prana is gone, again the mind starts. Not to undermine the practices of pranayam or any other methods. What we are trying to attempt here is that, yeah, how long will this manolaya happen? Mind becomes quiet, again it comes back. And the thing is, deep sleep doesn't transform anybody from at the mental level. At physical level, it provides rest, but at the mental level, the same attachments, aversions, pride, prejudice, anger, greed, jealousy, love, hatred, pride, knowledge, everything remains as it is in the mind. It just becomes unmanifest, again it becomes manifest. So no transformation happens. So what we are attempting is manonasha. The psychological sense of division has to go. How will that go? That's the whole sadhana. Ramana Maharshi said, through the who am I inquiry. Keep inquiring into who is this I, Mr. So-and-so, son of so-and-so. Who is this I? And any answer that comes, don't accept. Again, go back to the source. Who am I? From where did this thought rise? Who am I? That will remove this false sense of the psychological division that we have. That will go. The functional identity will remain. That's the prarabdha that has to be continued. So we don't have to be worried that, oh, manonasha will happen. Then will I become a lunatic in this world? No. Actually, you will become sane. Everybody else is lunatic in that sense that we all don't know the self. And everybody has come to agreement that this is the normal. But the fact is, the wise man alone knows what is the truth. Who has woken up to the self, that person alone knows. And from that person's standpoint, only the self exists. That's how the psychological division that I am this much and this loneliness and insecurity, all that goes away. So, vijrumbhate asmin sakalam vijrumbhate. One more verse we can take. Swapnirtha shunye srijati svashaktya bhoktradi vishwam mana eva sarvam tathaiva jagratyapi no visheshaha tatsarvametan manaso vijrumbhanam. Swapne, in the state of dream, artha shunye, there are no objects of the world that I am perceiving. The external sense objects are not there. But srijati svashaktya, the mind still projects by its own power, the power to dream. So it doesn't use anything of the world outside, is not aware of anything of the world outside, but it has its own dreaming power through which it projects the whole dream world. And before it projects the dream world, what does the mind project? Bhoktradi, Vishwam, Mana eva sarvam. Karta, Bhokta, and then the Vishwa, and then the enjoyment. That much is projected by the mind. Vishwa means all the sense objects and the rivers and the hills and the people and everything. In the dream world, whatever is projected by the mind. Bhoktradi Vishwam Manayeva Sarvam. And all this which is there in the dream is what? Manayeva Sarvam. It's only the mind, one mind manifesting as so many. What is the analogy here? Why is it saying this? Because we think that, okay, this one body is mine, this dream, and then this world is different, God is different. Mana eva sarvam. Mind is all this in the dream. Sentient, inert, moving, non-moving, everything is in the dream is the mind alone. Now this analogy is also being given to make us aware that the same process is happening in the waking state. Tathaiva jagrityapi no vishesha. Even in the waking state, there is no difference. As far as the projection is concerned, it is the same. Technically, yes, the difference is that in the waking state, buddhi is active, in the dream state, buddhi is not active. But keep that aside. The purpose is to say that how this whole world is a projection. Like the dream world is a projection. So, tathaiva jagratyapi no vishesha. It is not different at all. The entire world is a projection of the mind. Tat sarvam etam manaso vijrumbhanam. Yes, it's a projection of the mind. So when we say projection, projection depends on the quality of the mind. That's why we discussed earlier that the mind, how the mind is, so will be the experience of the world. And when the mind ends, the world does not exist. Now one says that, okay, but world does not exist, but what about the other person? For others it exists. Where are the others? In deep sleep, when the world has ended for you, where are the others for whom the world exists? They are also not there. So they are a part of that world only. Including I am not there. That's how the whole world becomes unmanifest. World doesn't become unmanifest retaining this I. This small I also becomes unmanifest. That also is a part of the world. Only the real I remains. And yes, in deep sleep, of course, there is avidya. So that's why I don't know the real I. But otherwise, the karta, the vishwa, the bhokta, all of them become unmanifest in the dream, in the deep sleep. And then again they come back. So in the dream also, that is what happens. The karta is created, the bhokta is created, the whole world is created, projected. And just like the dream is created by the mind, it's using its own power of dreaming. And the quality of the dream also will depend on the impressions that are there in the mind. In the same way in this world also. Each one is projecting the world according to their quality, according to their temperament. So this projection has to end. The psychological projection has to end. The functional projection will continue. That is not a problem. But the psychological conditioning that I am this Mr. So and so, till I don't identify with this Mr. I so and so, I won't experience the world outside. So the ego rises first. Then the world is experienced by us through that. Hence, that has to be ended. Now, when we say the whole world is a projection, there are many things to learn from this. One is it's a projection based on my own past karmas, my own tendencies. So we cannot blame the world at all. That why this is like that, why that is like that. The world outside may be whatever it is, but my mind is projecting a certain way of relating with it, and it is experiencing happiness or sorrow. So my experience of the world completely depends on my mind, whatever be the external circumstance. And that's the saving grace, that we can change ourselves. That is one aspect. Second aspect is, because it is a projection, it is not real. Like the movie is projected, it is not real. One knows that nothing is happening there. Same way it is that the world is projected by our mind. But just because it is projected doesn't make it real at all. What we see through our senses also is not real. What the mind projects also is not real. It is a limitation of our senses and our knowledge that we think it is real. So here it says the projection, it is a complete projection of one's mind. And the third point is each one's projection is very different. And the thing is, each one is trying to make the other have the same projection as one is having. How is that possible? Because each one has their own vasanas. Why am I trying to condition somebody? So many times that happens. Imposing one's own ideas, views, desires on somebody else. It is their projection, their world, their experience, they will continue. Why should I impose myself? I do my duty towards them and that's about it. So that's the meaning. So first one is the projection as per my mind's temperament. Second one is each one is projecting as per their own temperament. So don't try to control their projections. And third is it is a projection, so it is not real. That's the Vedantic standpoint. Because it's a projection, it is not real. Why should I become so affected by that? It's only because I identify with it. Like in the movies theater, so many people identify with the characters in the movie and then they feel happiness and sorrow and all that. But the fact is nothing is happening there. In the same way, play the roles, do the duties here, but deep down know that I am not this. This whole thing is a projection. And in meditation, when I withdraw, consciously when I withdraw the whole identification, then I realize here, Brahman alone is, nothing else is there. So that is this verse about the projection. Now one question somebody may have that, oh, this projection is there. So who created this projection of this? I didn't create the hills and mountains and rivers and all this. See, it is the world outside. If we want to distinguish like that, we distinguish saying the world outside is a projection of Ishvara's mind in terms of the hills and the mountains and nature and all that. But how we relate to it, that is our mind, our mind's projection. That is one way to understand. Other way to understand is the entire thing is a projection of my mind and I am that total mind. I am not this one mind. Either ways, it's a projection of the mind. So more of this we will continue tomorrow. Any questions, you are welcome to ask.
Namaste Swamiji. Referring to verse 168, it says, Dahati Prapancham.
Yes, Gulshan, you can unmute and ask. Gulshan, I can hear now.
Hari Om, Swamiji.
Yeah, I can hear.
Swamiji, I had a question regarding the mind, right? When we talk about destroying the mind, we are really talking about destroying the associations which our mind has created. That is my understanding so far.
Yeah, the psychological association.
Yes.
Yes. Not the functional association.
So when we destroy this, yes. So now when I gain this realization that I am not my mind, yes, there is a separate entity, and when I get that clarity is still coming through my mind.
Yeah. Right now it is informative knowledge, which is clarity through the mind.
That's where I have a...
Yes. So that's very, very good question. The thing is, clarity is in the mind. It is coming through the mind. But remember, avidya also is in the mind, no? What did that say? Manohi avidya bhavabandha hetu. Ignorance that I am not this, I am the body and I am not the Atma, that wrong notion is also in the mind only. So ignorance is in the mind, knowledge arises in the mind, ignorance destroys the knowledge, Atma is anyway Sakshi of both. So when that knowledge arises, what is the nature of that knowledge? It is not only informative knowledge. With this knowledge, I sit and withdraw the attention of my mind from the mind itself. The last step is transcendence of the mind, which happens on its own, where there is nothing else required from our side. So this knowledge will give me the clarity. With the clarity, I'm able to sit quietly, withdraw my attention from the world to the body, from the body to the senses, senses to the mind, mind to the intellect, and intellect and beyond. That intellect and beyond, that is the part which is called, which will help me to do manonasha. That's what happens in contemplation. When I constantly say, I am Brahman, I am Brahman, I am Brahman, all other thoughts go. Even the thought, I am Brahman, that will also go. Now, how will that go? For that, any other thought is required? No, no. It, like the thought of I want sleep, I want sleep, I want sleep. That helps me to drop all other thoughts. Then that last thought that I want sleep gets sucked into the thought, gets sucked when that disappears when I get sucked into sleep. Sleep just, I'm invoking sleep through that thought. And when that sleep comes, this thought just disappears. Nothing has to be done. That's what we will do. That's called manomaya, manonasha. That's what happens in contemplation. So it's
Okay,
like
understood.
a ladder, going up the ladder and then dropping the ladder. It's like that. Using the mind, going beyond the mind.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Swamiji.
Right.
Namaste, Swamiji.
Haji.
Yeah. Verse 160 says, Dahati Prapancham. Now, Prapancham here refers to samsara, mental problem, right?
Prapancha means the world, not a problem. The world is called Prapancha because world is made up of 5 elements. That's why it's called Prapancha. So it refers to the world outside. We sometimes use the word Prapancha to mean problem. But in this context, it means the world.
Okay, and one more question. In Swapna Avastha, the sense objects are created by the mind. Okay, they are experienced by the mind alone. So when Shankaracharya says that in Jagrat Avastha also, the mind alone creates the object, this is what you were saying, something about the total mind. So the world outside is created by the total mind. Does that mean all the objects are created by the mind only?
Correct. It is created by the mind only. So in this context, if I say that I am the individual mind, even in that sense, as long as my individual mind is not active, I cannot experience the world of objects, whatever the world of objects is. So the idea is that just like in the dream it projects, here also it projects. How do I think that the object actually exists outside? Only when the mind is existing, I experience the object outside. That is one way to understand. The other way to understand is that yes, it is a creation of the total mind, the world of objects. In this, including this one mind, is also creation of that total mind, and I am that total mind. So either we say this is projection of the jiva, is how the jiva experiences the world. If one doesn't want to say that, I created the hills and the mountains, etc. As a jiva, of course, I did not create. How I relate to them is because of my mind. If my mind is active, I experience. If my mind is not active, I don't experience. Then who created this? That Ishvara created. And who is that Ishvara? That is you. So either way, shift the identification.
Okay, thank you.
Hari Om Swamiji,
Haji.
many times, yeah, there is a knowledge in the mind that the particular things has not to be done. Like a person having a diabetes knows very well that should not eat the sweet, but when the sweet comes in front, even after taking so much of strong this to follow the austerity, but the person is not able to do it. So how it happens if the mind everything does?
Because the mind itself has value for it. No, one part of the mind stays and knows that I should not eat sweet, but the other part of mind which values the
split
joy.
personality.
That's what. So that is a split. That's the challenge. Our vasanas are creating the split in us. What we know and how we act. The whole sadhana is to integrate that.
So you keep applying your knowledge every incidents you get through, and then automatically at one time it will drop. Is it right?
Yes, yes. One has to keep applying, keep putting effort, remove. You see, it's not only mechanically by willpower one says, I will not eat sweet, I will not eat sweet, I will not eat sweet.
Mhm.
One has to remove the value that one has for it.
So
That is
that comes by
Pratyaksha
thinking
Bhavana.
only, no? That this
Yeah,
is
yeah.
a wrong thing to do, so I
Correct,
should not do it. Yeah.
correct. So by proper Vivek, Vairagya and Pratipaksha Bhavana, the tendency to enjoy pleasure that is there,
Yeah.
because that sweet gives me pleasure. That pleasurable tendency has to be eliminated. For that, right thinking is required, for that, tapas is required. Then it goes.
But it goes automatically then at one point.
Yes, only through right thinking and tapas that is done constantly, then it will go.
Okay. So that is called as the conquering of mind.
Yeah.
Thank you, Swamiji.
Vaijayanti.
Hari Om Swamiji.
Hari Om.
The question is about the in meditation while we try to transcend the mind,
In
we are
meditation.
instructed to maintain a single thought and then drop that thought. And in the guided meditation by Swami Advayanandji, he told that don't observe the silence, be the silence. So actually, I don't understand how it is to be done.
See, if I say I'm observing silence, silence becomes a state of my mind.
Becomes an object.
Silence becomes an object which is a state of my mind. Be the silence means understand that my nature is silence. I am not this mind. My nature is Shanti. Shanti is my Swarupa. Like be happy. If I say be happy through object, then the happiness is coming from somewhere else. But if I say I am happiness, then happiness is my nature. So the constant assertion is aham shantoham. Not that I have Shanti or I am observing Shanti. Shanti is a state of mind which comes and goes. No. My nature is Shanti. Even like silence, best example for that is silence. Silence exists before the sound also. Silence exists while the sound is also there. And silence exists even after the sound.
Yes.
In the same way, Shanti is my Swarup. Before the thought agitation, Shanti is there. During the thought agitation, Shanti is there. After the thought agitation also, Shanti is there. So Shanti is not a product of my thought. Shanti is existent independent of my thought. That is what it means. Be the Shanti means be that peace, because that's our nature. If I
So
say
again,
peace of mind, that peace of mind will come and go as long as, like that Manolaya we spoke about. Manolaya, as long as the prana is controlled, the mantra is being chanted, whatever I'm doing, that will quieten the agitation. So I say, oh, I am so peaceful. But that peace is only a temporary peace. Yeah, that will go away. No doubt that is important. It is important because through that, then I can transcend the mind. But that's not the final state. That's what it means. The final state is to know that self, which is of the nature of peace, not a thought which is peace.
Okay, thank you, Hari Om Swamiji.
Okay. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha.